This one's things fall apart. The day? The day doesn't matter. Days run together even with that one hellish day lingering somewhere in between the endless stringing together of days. Days are just numbers on a clock, the ticks of the seconds on a clock. And the months don't matter either. They're just the minute hands of a clock anyway. And the year? The year doesn't matter. This could happen at any time. Time doesn't matter unless you have plans to be made. Specific plans. Or if you read the newspaper, which he never did. He never had the patience to read someone else's babble when he had to listen to it come out of everyone else's mouth every day without fail and without escape. Shigure helped bringing it in when he complained, as he often did, that the newspaper was slowly drifting into the world of $5 romance paperbacks, somehow meaning that the content of the paper was extremely filthy these days. However, that happens in the public media. Most people just mocked him for even using a comparison like that. How does he even know? Either way, it doesn't matter because the date never mattered, because there was only that one landmark in time. Also because he didn't have specific plans, or plans so precise they were unspecific. Lately, there's been an issue he's been dealing with. Mental anguish. That's what he liked to call it anyway. It's not as though he didn't know what was going on. He'd seen it too many times in too many different shapes and forms, and never actually gone through the same passages. He also wasn't stupid enough to not know what this mental anguish was. He just didn't name the beast, believing that it would die if it didn't have a name. If it grew, it would cause more anguish. Regret, jealousy. Would it even be worth a moment's euphoria? On this particular nameless day, he walked in and saw her in bed as she often was, and the beast began to claw at his innards as it had been doing for some time now. Groaning, he turned around to walk out. He paused when he heard her shifting in her sleep, shaking herself awake. He thought he should have walked away, but he stayed glued to that spot. "Why'd you walk in?" she asked, her speech slightly slurred by drunken lethargy. Her eyes were probably shifting as they often did, like a thief. "Just now," he answered meekly. "You're acting like I'm coming to kill you or something." "No, I just woke up and suddenly you were in the room. I just wanted to know how long I was asleep and wasting your time." "What makes you think I'm wasting my time?" He turned around at this point. "Wasn't it just bad timing for me, or that you need to do something other than sleep?" "Well, you're waiting for me to wake up. There's plenty of time for you to be using, She waved a hand, trying to sift up some ideas on what he would have efficiently used that time on. Chances were she didn't even have an idea what he did during the day, as he didn't know what she normally did, other than sleep. He coughed her out. "You can't sleep at night?" "I have trouble sleeping at night. Or lately I have. Because you sleep during the day." She shrugged. "So why'd you come? Was there something you needed at this time, or something other than a chance to spar?" "No." "So what'd you come for?" Maybe he was imagining it, but as he looked at her face at that moment, it was something that was in between hopefulness and relief. "Nothing. I came here on accident." She didn't believe him, and by the look on her face, he could tell she didn't. He made a mental note to figure out how to bypass her polygraph abilities, whatever euphemism she decided was fitting. He suddenly remembered there was some national stereotype about people in this area having the tendency to create euphemisms for everything, and being extremely suspicious and humorless. Having met Macro, he had a feeling that she was a basis for the stereotype, and that Ryzen Also might have brought it on. Focus for 5 seconds. She opened her mouth to call him out on it, more than likely. Instead, she stopped and accepted it. Or she didn't want to pursue the truth at this time. Well, I guess it was good of you to come. He stepped back. What's that supposed to mean? I like your company. What's that supposed to mean? It can't just mean what it is. It's supposed to mean something more. Why is it my company? The beast was really clawing now. Damn it. Well, I know you and you know me. Fired back. No, you don't. Fine. I know you well enough, you know me well enough. No, we don't. It's a shame that you think so. Meaning what? What do you want it to mean then? Ugh. She groaned when he remained silent, a blank look on his face. He sat with her face supporting by her hands, studying him for a moment. He started to glance around, hoping that he wasn't looking around too wildly or being too obvious. Anything to get that damn English to settle down. No, really. What do you want to hear? I mean, is it because we're friends, or at least I think we're friends? If you don't think so, that's a shame, really. Or are you friends? Why are you asking so many questions? It's a simple question, McCrow. Just answer it. She got up and stretched, stretching out that suspense. And it was awkwardly that she happened to have, having done that melodramatic move, she finally answered, I trust you. I don't trust many people, not even right now when I have no reason to feel that way. I trust you the most because I know you almost as much as I do myself. You're my only friend I have right now anyway. Or the only real one I can call. You understand what I'm trying to say, right? I wish you didn't. What about everyone else? Everyone else is everyone else. Most people still want to stick to the master-servant relationship. I don't think it's much of a loss. Why not? Because you have me? I don't know. It just is. I mean, it's still a conflict of trust. Is there a particular reason why never mind? He walked out. He walked into the nearest empty room. It took him at least 3 tries to strike gold. He wasn't really keeping track, though. He smacked a wall, leaving a huge hole in it. Damn it, she's so pathetic. She's so damn pathetic. He caught himself before he smacked the wall again, suddenly aware of the hole he created. Damn. I couldn't say he wasn't susceptible now. Why did it have to be now of all times in hell? Her of all people. He could have fleshed it out there. He could have questioned why it was an inconvenience when there was no time constraints at risk. Seeing how he still didn't know the date and how he failed to be disturbed by this lack of knowledge shows it to be truth. If he did, he would have had to realize that it still posed no threats to said time constraints in the present moment in its present form. He could have ruled her out. He could have dismissed the comforting air about her, that feeling of completeness, of a holiness that floated around her. Something was so... But when you're in pain, you don't question it. You just reach for relief. He became increasingly aware of the Harisatone he had hanging around his neck. He became increasingly aware of the girl waiting for the news on the other side. He walked into her room the next day. The curl was on her right side, the left and unscarred side of her face exposed. Her left arm held slightly out and slightly bent, and her right arm tucked under her body. There was something vaguely childish about how her hair fell in bunches in her face, and her hand never turned away. Just sleep, idiot. Her slightly pink lips slightly parted, and her chest rose and fell in the slow and steady pace of sleep. The length of her eyelashes, the curve of her brow, the shape of her nose, the curve of her jaw into her neck. The soft smoothness of her skin came to memory that one moment of intimacy. Who knows how many years, months, days ago that was. The smaller accidental touches. Odd how it was that after all the chances life gave to callous her hands, they weren't the way his were roughened. Her chest gave one heavy heave. Was she stirring awake, or was it a sigh of mid-dream? Her fingers curled slightly, tugging slightly at the sheets. There was something deeply pleasant about it. He walked closer, reached out to put a hand on her shoulder. What? Then dropped it to touch her hand to feel the soft skin. He paused, mentally shaking his head at his own foolishness. At the moment, he pulled his arm back. He still couldn't help but think of how pleasant it would be to put his hand on at least her shoulder and imagine all the possibilities it could open up. So how pleasant it would be to feel her soft skin, to feel her lips, to feel her skin again. Need to stop. Not that damn stupid. He dropped to the bed, trying to keep himself from sighing. He heard the sound of her rolling over, and hoped that she was just rolling over in her sleep. Not that he's that lucky. What are you doing? The girl asked. He turned around and saw she was still lying down, but was propped up on one arm, her hand buried in her flurry of blonde hair. She had a half smile on her face. Something about it made him feel a bit red in the face. She probably interpreted it as a part of rage, though she claims the ability to read him like a book. Man. Next thing I'll be waking up with you in bed with me. And a few days later, on top of me, you start walking to the door. It was a joke, relax. I didn't think we were so sensitive about that kind of thing, especially how you were raised. Didn't go red in the face about. Well, at least one thing worked out. He turned around and focused on the wall that was beyond her. I didn't realize you were into that kind of humor. It's really out of character. Making you uncomfortable is my job. Been doing it since day one. Don't act like it was obvious that I disturbed you, even if it was just a little. Okay, more than a little. So, you really wanted something this time? I mean, what are you doing here? You just stood there for the longest time. I was just paused when he realized she was aware of him being in the room the whole time. He gave her a questioning look. Well, I was about to drift off when you walked in. I thought you were going to leave, but you just stood there. So just when I was about to drift off again, you dropped yourself at the foot of the bed like you were. You're a real bastard for not letting me sleep, you know that? He groaned. Why the hell can't you just sleep during the night? I only get bored during the day because there's not much for me to do. Now I think about it, no one really needs me like they used to. It used to be that I would worry so much about Ryzen's death that I wouldn't sleep most nights. I had to make sure that I was one step ahead of Yomi all the time, should Ryzen suddenly drop like a fly. I had to worry about who would win the tournament and be the king, whether or not that was what I really wanted. Though, I don't think there was ever a time when I did know what I wanted. I kind of miss those days. Even if I was completely miserable, if only to see Ryzen again. He shoved his hands in his pockets, hide the clenching at him. Hey, why am I getting mad? I'm not. Man, why is she really that stupid? Why? Maybe I'll. He was an annoying idiot, but I really did love the fool. I mean, as a brother. I might be mistaken, though. You know better than I do. Sibling love? She sat up and stifled yawn with her open palm. I suppose I envy you somewhat. I would. Why would you? His heart was starting to pound. He wished it would stop. Maybe I want someone to love me, or someone to love. Whether or not I'm the giver or the recipient, it's still a selfish desire. It's something only a small child would ask for. Or for most, so I'm told. You don't know the level of it, actually. So, I know as much as you do. Find something to do. What do you do at night if you can't sleep? Lie around mostly. I suppose that makes me the portrait of laziness. I really wish people had something to complain about so I have something to do. Maybe someone can go on a murdering rampage. Even if someone were to have a revolution, I wouldn't have much to say. All I can do is say something strong enough to get on the front page of news at the most. I'm actually shocked that we haven't worried about that yet. You should become the king and hijack the world so everyone can run in circles screaming. There would be some pretty good entertainment there. Then go and be king again, do it yourself. I don't want to. I have no interest in doing so. So, you're miserable because you have no power, and yet you have the option to get it back and you don't want to take it. She stood up and reached up for a stretch. And then again, he became aware of it. It's like foreplay. It's not. She assured him that she was not standing up so she could leave the room, gestured for him to sit down, believing that he'd been spending too much time on his feet. You know, I really am envious of you to a certain extent. You have things I don't have. I have things that you probably want. His heart was pounding hard at that point. He could hear it in his ears. He foolishly began to hope that she couldn't hear it. She doesn't mean... Does she? Are you stupid? What do you think I want? Power. Physical strength. I have a feeling that you also want political power. It's waned some, but I could still flatten you, most likely. But I won't because I don't want to. I don't want to fight you. I just don't. What power you may have gained when you were in my second in command doesn't really compare to what I used to have. It's sad though. People still don't want to come near me. He sighed. For some reason he thought he pitied her for a bit. Even when it turns out to be a kernel of pity. Mostly he was inclined to tell her to take her head out of her ass. He already knew that the beast clawing inside him was begging for him to make it go the other way around. But wasn't it obvious why people did it? He didn't want to dig into it anymore. So what do I have that you want? You have friends, family. Well, you have your sister anyway. Though, no one ever said that Chico, the man I believed to be my father, might not be my father, and that my real parents are out there having a fun time, having other children, loving them, but not loving me. Or maybe Chico forgot to sterilize one of his women and fathered other children. Probably they were more fortunate than I am. She started to pace back and forth, then turned it over in her head and stopped inside at the thought, even showing her distress at the thought to wring her hands through her hair. At this point, it was standing up in some parts. But, as I said before, it's just a selfish, childish desire. So maybe just become a miserable, lonely old bat. Never even think being alone or bothersome until you get lonely. You shouldn't be. Shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He became aware of how the table was bare and put his feet on it, hoping it would level him out some. Looking at her eyes, he suddenly noticed the sad slant to him that when she shrugged, he sighed, rubbing at his temple. So, what if I could give you all that? In exchange for what? My soul and power? No, I mean, you already do. He raised his brows. You've been keeping me company. Oh, I shouldn't put it that way. But you are a dear friend of mine. Maybe you replaced the family I never really had. My God, you're so damn depressing. You're still harping on about that. Get over it. If you're really that fucking desperate, then you should go out and make some friends or something. I don't care. Just sit around all day and you wait for me to come like some helpless woman that... Why the hell do you even wait for me? Well, I suppose I deserve that. I don't really wait for you per se. At least I don't think I do. But as I've said before, he stood up and started walking to the door. He paused and turned around. He looked at her face again, and it was completely blank. He looked away quickly, feeling the rush of blood to his... So damned pathetic, it makes me sick. She opened her mouth in protest, but he walked away before she could get past the word I. He didn't bother going into the room the next day. It was sickening in more ways than one. It was hard happened to at the thought of... The point is that it would make him sick to see her again. More sick than this goddamn mental anguish was making him. If he walked in, he would be inclined to apologize, even though she's the one who needs to apologize. She's the one who's pathetic, and she's the one who needs to change. If he walked in, he would see the familiar curve of her brow, the cat's eyes shaded with that deep blue slanted with sadness. No. He would see her and he would be inclined to do something he'd regret and thus make him weak to his own impulses. It would be something he didn't mean. It was a lie. Her damn soft skin was a lie. She passed him in the hall, glanced at him, probably desperate to strike up a conversation. Probably. Most likely. He passed her by, acting as though he didn't see her. God, if she pursued him following that reaction, he'd do it. What he would regret. The beast would burst out of his chest like some screwed up parasite and make it start that depressing cycle of euphoria, depression, jealousy, and weakness. Why? What the hell is it that makes her so damn special? Every damn second of being here puts him in an inch deeper in hell. As his head swam, someone called to him to get his ass in gear and get to work. He didn't know who it was. It was a man's voice. So it was a man with a face and eyes. At the moment, the man with the face and eyes was more like a series of pigments and a walking blood pack. He was probably getting the first migraine of his life right now. That damn woman was giving him a migraine. that would stop him. Fuck it. He's gonna leave that woman. I'll teach her. And she'll be all alone to wallow in her pathetic feelings. She wasn't in the room the next day. He's going to turn around and just leave without telling her. That bitch deserved a little shock. Something the beast currently known as mental anguish probably was telling him that he should at least try and tell her anyway. That's what a gentleman would do. Although he was egotistical enough to believe he was a gentleman. He just happened to come across her in his random wanderings, standing and looking at some huge window at God knows what. The scenery is about as interesting as a cup of water. He didn't want to tell her to know that he was there, but... Did he pick up his feet as he walked? Was he a quiet walker? Did his footsteps echo on this floor? He opened his mouth to get her to turn around. No sound came out, so he just stood there like an idiot with his mouth hanging open. She caught him first and turned around. She looked at him with a half smile in her cat's eyes, its gentle slant, slender red scent. An hourglass shape to put a hand on her. She stared at him before he could sift through his standard BS. He was suddenly aware of the soft roughness of her voice. She can make it as rough as she wants to. The almost accented tone it had. Okay, stop, just stop. You cannot see it, but you still search for it. It calls out to you, but you cannot hear it. You reach out to it, but you cannot see it. It touches you, but you can't feel its touch. And the tears come out to your eyes, and you begin to think that you cannot believe in it because it never shows itself to you. Or maybe you think it's an illusion because everyone else but you feels it. And you scoff at it coldly, ignoring your chance, refusing to have it for yourself, all because it's invisible, and what you can't see, you can't believe. That stopped him. What the hell is that supposed to mean? What you wanted to hear? Suspicious. How'd she know? How long has she known? Instead, it was safer to ask a more important question. Are you drunk? Drunk? No. High? No. Otherwise drugged? No. Just something I came up with randomly. It sounded better in my head, though. She turned around to face him, eyeing him, daring him to make his next move. Did you know? Damn, it was likely that she did. I'm leaving you, he said simply. Hell, the words slipped off his tongue so easily. He could say it over and over again. I'm leaving you, I'm leaving you, I'm leaving you. She blinked, but her expression didn't change. Do one of her brows really twitch? And a sudden burst of emotion. It's something I said. That's not what I'm saying. I'm giving you Kina her. I'm giving you Kina her Huri stone back. So it's something I did. Her eyebrows slanted with more finality. Why can't I leave because I want to or because I need to? Do you really think that I'm stupid that I can't make my own decision? You're not even at a level that you can make me do something that drastic. I just want this off my chest. Paused and went on. I'm also bored here too. I'll find something better to do while I'm at it. So it is something I did. No. You and I both know it's not based on a whim, but because of ennui that you're really leaving. Why can't you just say it? Can't you just say boredom? Don't be a smartass. Oh. sighed, paused to think it through as she rubbed a finger on her temple. Apparently she was having second thoughts about taking such a direct approach. It was good of you to come and tell me that you are leaving. I mean, I don't mean that I would be completely confused if you left without telling me. I'm sure you know what I'm getting at. She grabbed at the stone hanging around her neck. I should give this back to you. Shop. Don't. It's not mine to keep here. Yeah, and I want to let you keep it because you found it and apparently needed it more than I do. So you keep it. Sure, but you spent most of your life trying to find it. I don't want it to be in vain, so just take it. She held it out to him. He turned around. I told you, keep it. It means more to you than it does to me. She walked up to him, pried his hand open out of his pockets, pried open his fist, and dropped it in his hand. It was from your mother. If my mother left me something, I would keep it and never let it go. If your mother left you something, you would be this pathetic, restless whore that you are. He stuffed it in his pocket anyway. So it was something I did. Well, since you're leaving, could you at least be honest with yourself if you can't find it in yourself to be honest with others? He walked away before she could babble on, like a gentleman. When he saw Yukina, he intended to tell her that he was her brother, just to get something off his chest. Something didn't feel right about keeping both her stone and keeping that information from her. When he found her at Kubar's house, why? He melted away. He told her her brother died. Are you sure? She asked. Quite sure, he replied. You know what I do, don't you? She gave him a shaky nod, indicating she knew somewhat. You don't need to know the details, actually. The point is, I do love traveling. I kept asking around. I got a lead on someone. Apparently he died when he got into a fight with some guy. I didn't want to know the details, but the whole time he was looking for you. He lost his stone in a fight, and in turn they lost it, and somehow it ended up in the hands of one of the kings. I don't even know how that guy knew that. She didn't start crying, which made it much more awkward. I kind of wished she had started crying. Not that he would be any help in that situation either. Well, I suppose it's in good hands. She stared at the stone, and he offered it to her. But that wasn't what I was worried about. If he didn't have it then. I know. Well, thank you for telling me. Sorry to trouble you with this. You didn't. He was silent for a few minutes. Mr. Hay, you can keep that. He stared at her. No, it's okay if you have it. Really, I think it's better if you keep it. Well, she was silent for a few moments. She watched as he reluctantly dropped it in his pocket. So, why don't you come here more often? He didn't answer. Do you even know why? No, Yusuke and Kazuma say that you have a girlfriend and that you're living. Apparently, he made a face because she kept a hand over her mouth, eyes wide. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean to offend you or anything. That's just what I was told. I wasn't sure if it was true or not, but either way, as long as you're happy, then it's okay. I travel with a bunch of people, not just with her. She's just a friend, actually. That hurt. Someone's pink in her cheeks went down. Oh, they were just joking. You think we could meet her one day? Probably not. He didn't want to say anything that would disappoint her, nor did he want to commit to anything he wouldn't keep, like he assumed he often did. Sure. He had knocked on the door. He never did before, but something was telling him he should just let her know that someone was coming in. Already he thought would let out some macro shock when she sees that he returned. Thought that he was thinking she would faint at the sight of him and they would jump on the back of his trusty white steed and ride into the sunset happily ever after. That would just be stupid and the timing was off anyway. He knocked on the door again, but there was still no answer. He sighed and walked into the room anyway. The girl was lying on her back, staring intently at the ceiling with her cat-like eyes. Her hair, that golden red color. What do they call it? Still wild bundles on her face. He walked to the bed, paused and looked up. There isn't anything up there, so why... Look who decided to show up after all these years, Crow said, finally sitting up. Years? I was only gone for a few months, he shot back. Time doesn't matter here because time doesn't change. Do you ever consider saying something that doesn't belong in a philosophy book? Honey, if you can't figure out what it means, then you should buy yourself a translator, a dictionary, a thesaurus. How could sarcasm? I thought you knew when you hear it. Then again, you come back where you weren't wanted when not wanted or needed, so I suppose you lost that bit of information as well. She glared at him. What the hell did you come back here for? Did you realize that you didn't know where you were, so you came back to cry to someone who could be your mother? What? No, I came back because... for me. You really didn't want to go on. And again, what the hell was it that was making her so terrifying when I'd seen her worst moods? Because we're friends. So, after all this time of denial, you decided you might as well admit it so you can win me over, right? And then you might get past even that relationship. You're so transparent, you know that? You can tell what was going on. It won't work anymore. You just... Hell, I won't even say that. That's just turning me into a commodity. My god, are you so hurt that you can't even stand me anymore? She didn't even consider it. She was on her feet now. So did you tell your sister? He looked away, trying to find a softer way of putting it. She still beat him there. Judging by that look you're giving me, or rather the look you're not giving me, I'm saying you didn't even tell her and you came up with some lame-ass excuse like her brother's dead. Would you quit jumping to conclusions? Hey, would you get your dumb ass out of here? Fine. I get it. He reached into his pocket and pulled out one of the Hiri stones. Tossed it to her, but she didn't catch it. She didn't even try. Just bounced off her chest and lay on her crossed arms. She looked down at it and sighed, opening her arms just long enough just for it to fall to her feet. I don't need that damn thing to save me anymore. Take it back. He started to walk up to her to pick it up and force it on her. He decided mid-step that he wouldn't. She had to pick it up. I'm giving you permission to keep it if that helps. I think you should have it. Her expression didn't soften. You used it more than I did, And you know it, Makuro. She opened her mouth to protest, but he wouldn't let her have his victory. My mother left it for me. She probably would have wanted me to keep it for as long as I live, but she would have also slapped me if I didn't let you have it when you clearly needed it more than I do. It did more for you than it did for me, and I'm sure it means more to you than it does to me. Hell, maybe it means... Look, if you want me to be mystical, then it has my mother's love and my mother's feelings there for you. There's your nows. Take it. Take it back before I slit your throat. Her hands were in her pockets. He shrugged. And leave it there. I know you wouldn't do it anyway. I'll have to pick it up at some point. He won the battle, but he hadn't won the war.